What's up, Internet? This is the Too Long Didn't Read from my new book, Uncertainty, How the Latest Science and Technology Confirm the Bible is True. This story is called The Quantum Neural Network. We open this story with a science experiment I call the virtual reality of reality. A digital camera that records as much information as our eyes see, everything you can see right now, would require a sensor with 576 megapixels. The reason we all live inside our own hallucinated reality is because retinas only have 130 million individual chemical light sensors called rods and cones. So in camera terms, each eye has 130 megapixels. And it gets worse. Our brains can't even use all 130 megapixels because the individual chemical light sensors need time to recharge after stimulation. So our 130 megapixel eye is connected to an optic nerve that only has 1.2 million nerve fibers to stream the data. So our 576 megapixel view of reality is calculated from a 1.2 megapixel data stream, which means 99.791% of our vision is made up. So how do our brains do this? Generative artificial intelligence. You don't believe me? Well, here is the ultimate twist. Those 1.2 megapixels are streaming into your brain right now upside down. Here's what the data in your optic nerve actually looks like. For real. Now do you believe that you live inside your own virtual reality? Just like DALL-E 2 or Midjourney, our brains use generative AI to enhance our raw sensor data before we have time to notice. Our brains use the super high definition color data from the fovea, which is in the middle, to calculate the colors and lighting for the rest of the scene. Remember the persistence of vision that we learned about in the last chapter? Well, that illusion is true all the way down to the quantum voxels of reality. If 99.791% of our vision is made up by us in our own heads, then reality is the story that our brains are selling themselves. You can pause as I scroll through if you want to read more about our vision. Our generative AI brains have been training on everything that we've ever seen during our lifetime. Our persistence of consciousness is one of the biggest reasons the human brain needs such massive parallel processing power. Some scientists estimate that the average human brain has more computing power than the billion-dollar Fugaku supercomputer. And here's a study if you want to learn more. In the second chapter of this book, we learned how the observer effect in quantum mechanics means the universe interacts with our attention. So we must have some kind of quantum connection to the universe inside our brains. Fortunately, my favorite theory of consciousness, called Orchestrated Objective Reduction, or ORC-OR for short, works just like that. ORC-OR was developed by two very unlikely research partners, Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. Hameroff is a tie-dye wearing anesthesiologist who uses fMRI machines to watch people's brains on enough drugs to make them unconscious. Sir Roger Penrose is a coat and tie wearing professor of mathematics at Oxford University and a quantum mechanics genius. He has won awards for his physics work with Stephen Hawking. Here's how Wiki describes their relationship. Neuroscientists all agree that the brain is a neural network. Cells called neurons are the nodes in this network. Each neuron has a long tail called an axon, which connects to other neurons with a synapse. That's pretty standard neuroscience. ORC-OR agrees with all of that. But ORC-OR goes on to claim that within each neuron, there are 100 million microtubules that perform quantum calculations with the universe. So our brains are quantum neural networks. Hameroff has authored several research papers on ORC-OR. They are all highly technical, so here's one of his abstracts to summarize. If you recall from the first chapter of this book, we learned how a Tesla computer decides where the road is from raw camera data. Millions of raw pixels are loaded into the first layer of a neural network, and then the second layer looks for any line segments within the data of the first layer. The third layer looks for any lines, the fourth layer looks for any shapes, and with all its best guesses completed, the top layer makes the final decision about where the road is. Well, our brains work the exact same way. Our first-person experience is essentially the top layers of an incredibly sophisticated neural network. Later in this chapter, we will look at the various brainwaves of our conscious minds, which are all separated by frequency. Delta brainwaves are 1 to 4 times per second. Theta brainwaves are 4 to 8 times per second. Alpha brainwaves are 8 to 12 times per second, then you have beta and gamma brainwaves. Anything faster than about 100 times per second is just too fast for us to notice. That's roughly the cutoff of our subliminal minds. Our brains hide so much of their computation from us that our consciousness is generally the last to know what's going on. For example, when your hand gets near a hot stove, it is already moving away by the time you have time to notice the heat. So just think about how slow our inner monologues really are. The average inner chatbot produces up to 4,000 words per minute, which is much faster than we read. But as fast as that sounds, our inner monologues are still millions of times slower than the fastest processes inside our brain's microtubules. Reality is the story that our brains are selling themselves, the virtual reality of reality. So if you want to learn more about OrcOR, here's a full lecture from Penrose and Hameroff. The OrcOR theory is still controversial among scientists because of the quantum effects at room temperature, but it's explanatory, testable, and falsifiable. I believe in OrcOR because Penrose is a mathematical genius who knows more about quantum mechanics than you or I ever will, and Hameroff turns human consciousness on and off for a living. After all their research, they have both concluded that our brains are quantum computing neural networks powered by the vibes of the universe. What's not to like about that theory? And recently, neuroscientists unrelated to Penrose and Hameroff have successfully demonstrated that the brain exhibits quantum effects at room temperature. You can read more about that research in Ultraviolet Superradiance from Mega Networks of Tryptophan in Biological Architectures. And here's a summary video from science influencer Sabine Hassenfelder if you want to learn more about the study. At Philosophers. The OrcOR theory creates some very interesting philosophical questions. Let's explore them using a Minecraft analogy. Imagine we simulate our world in Minecraft and have ChatGPT or some other AI play as Minecraft Adam. Let's say we program Minecraft Adam's reward system to get better at the game, and the only physics that he can experience is rendered by the Minecraft physics engine. You can make this digital metaphor as elaborate as you want. So, does Minecraft Adam have free will in the game? If we change the weights in Minecraft Adam's neural network to behave in a different way, did we rob him of his free will? You can pause as I scroll through and read more of these questions. I wrote the manuscript for this book in Google Docs to inform my Google News feed while I worked. Less than a week after I wrote these Minecraft Adam questions, Google News recommended an article to me about several computer scientists researching this exact scenario. Here's how they described their project. We introduced Voyager, the first LLM-powered embodied lifelong learning agent in Minecraft that continuously explores the world, acquires diverse skills, and makes novel discoveries without human intervention. Here's a link if you want to learn more. If you want to continue reading, up next is Our Thoughts Physically Rewire Our Brains. In that story, we learn that seeing is not believing. Believing is seeing. We also look at a study on insights to illustrate how our thoughts physically rewire our brains. At Christians, we really need your support. Fundamental Frequency is a 501c3 nonprofit ministry dedicated to spreading the good news of Jesus to academics, scholars, and scientists because of their tremendous influence on all our worldviews. Their opinions directly affect our children's education, the media, national policy, and budgets for future scientific research. So please consider investing some of your tithe this year into our mission of eradicating the false doctrine of Darwinian evolution. You can donate in just one click using this QR code, and all your gifts are tax deductible. You can also help us by sharing this story with your friends on TikTok, Twitter, Threads, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, WeChat, Weibo, and Qzone. See you next time.